It's hard enough for student sexual assault survivors. Missouri lawmakers are trying to make it even worse. Whether or not to report sexual assault or harassment to their university, already face a slew of barriers. There's the shame, embarrassment, and fear of going through an emotionally difficult misconduct process. There's the panic that even if they report, nothing will be done. And, as a landmark 2015 campus sexual assault survey found, there's the pervasive belief that most incidents aren't serious enough to report even if they involve forcible penetration. Now lawmakers in Missouri are advancing a pair of bills that critics say would make reporting campus sexual misconduct even more difficult, allowing colleges to raise the bar for victims to prove their cases and providing powerful disincentives to speak up about sexual violence. The more draconian version of the legislation, coming from the state Senate, could open survivors up to lawsuits if a college isn't able to substantiate their report of an assault. But the bills from both the State House and Senate require students who choose to make a report to submit to cross-examination by the accused perpetrator, a controversial practice that some say re-traumatizes survivors. Either version of the legislation would also give students, mostly young men accused of sexual assault or harassment, more power than they would have anywhere else in the country. The bills, introduced by Republicans with powerful seats on State House and Senate education panels, are moving through the legislature. Both were recently voted out of committee and await debate in the full chambers. The legislation has strong support within the state party, as well as the backing of a new dark money group and one faction of the NAACP. The version of the bill that appears more likely to pass and go to the governor's desk is the compromise measure in the House, which would enshrine in state law many temporary Title X rules released by Education Secretary Betsy DeVos in 2017. Among other measures, the bill would. There's still a chance the harsher version of the law or parts of it could be signed into law. That bill would codify some of the most hostile laws in the country to survivors of campus sexual violence. It would. Both bills would create a new process for students to request Title X cases be heard by a little-known state panel of commissioners, who would follow courtroom-like procedures, and could potentially overturn suspensions or expulsions. They would also require universities to enforce a rule that no one involved in a Title X complaint, presumably including survivors themselves, could use the word survivor or any other term that presumes guilt before a formal finding of sexual misconduct. Supporters of the legislation say it's needed to guarantee accused students are treated fairly. But its opponents include many local universities and the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, as well as national survivor rights organizations, which argue the bills would discourage victims from reporting sexual violence or harassment. These bills would prove devastating to survivors and drastically decrease the number of survivors coming forward, Sage Carson of Know Your Ick said in a statement. The organization's website states that the bills rely on a stereotype that victims of sex discrimination, including sexual assault, are inherently less credible than those who report other types of student misconduct. The bills echoes a national conversation about the rights of men accused of sexual violence that's been growing since President Donald Trump took office, and that reached a fever pitch during the confirmation hearings of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The new legislative effort in Missouri reflects the escalating fear, consistently pushed by Trump himself, accused of sexual misconduct by at least 20 women, that any man could be falsely accused of rape. It is a very scary time for young men in America, the president has stated. This fear has also started to permeate official policy in Washington. After DeVos released her temporary guidance in 2017, with input from men's rights organizations, the federal education department set about writing formal regulations on how universities